All right, so it is week 6, and we're nearing the end. You guys are surviving. This week, you're learning rational functions, and actually, this is a kind of a light week, so this will give you a chance to catch up on anything if you're behind. So this week, you are only doing 2 sections in Chapter 4, rational functions and conics. So that's section 4.1 and 4.2. Everything else that's in Chapter 4 is actually going to be covered in pre-calculus, which is MA141. So you're only going to do a little bit of it. You'll see the rest later on if you have to go into engineering, computer science, all those things that require the use of pre-calculus. So what can you use this for? Why are rational functions useful in the real world? So one use of rational functions is in finding averages. And actually, that's what we're going to be doing in the discussion this week, is you're going to actually be finding an average. You can use them for distance and speed problems because you have distance equals rate times time. So if you're solving for time, that's distance divided by speed, d over r. You can use it in manufacturing work time problems. So those are the types of problems where it says if a machine takes this long to go through, like let's say you have a machine that's packing boxes, and it in 1 hour will go through 1,000 boxes. I'm just making these up. So I have no idea if these are accurate numbers or not. So how many can you get through if you have 2 machines? Or maybe one machine is newer than the other, and so one machine, the newer one, can do 2,000 boxes, the older machine can do 1,000 boxes. And if you have, say, 100,000 boxes, how long will it take you if you have both of those machines running? So those kind of questions where those are very useful in manufacturing or anything where you have a lot of automation. Those types of word problems that you're like, why do people have to know these? Well, that's actually a word problem that you have to do in automation. Photography. So there's actually a rational equation based off of how far you can focus, the distance from an object, based off of your lens resolution. All of that actually is governed by a rational function. Aerodynamics, uses rational functions. And then we've got electronic circuits. So if you're already taking like AC or DC circuits or one of those, you may notice that there is an equation for the resistance for parallel circuits, and that actually involves where your variable is in the denominator. So that is actually a rational equation, a rational function. So there are a lot of uses for these things. So the sections that are prerequisite for this week, so we're going to be doing 4.1 and 4.2, which do involve a lot of the previous sections. You're going to be needing to solve linear and quadratic equations. You're going to need to be able to solve polynomial equations. You need to be able to factor, as always. You'll be doing a lot of graphing, so being able to use Desmos, and then understanding functions and transformations. So sort of the same sort of skills you were looking at last week. We're just kind of looking at them again in a different context. So for week 6, you have your discussion, your ungraded practice assignment, the assignment, and then the quiz. So you've got your 4 things as usual for this week. So let's start with the discussion because that's another math-based one, and so that's where people have questions. So this is going to be, you sort of had 3 parts here. So the first part is to do some research. So I'm sorry, that's my dog. She probably can't find me. So you're going to be doing research, and the whole purpose of the discussion prompt is we're going to be verifying what like a cell phone company says it will cost us if we get a new cell phone and put it on our bill. Or you can use this if you're going to be budgeting and you want to know how much you can afford, what kind of phone you can afford. So the first step is to actually do research. So you need to find the total price of a phone you want to buy, and then you need to know how much your cell phone service is a month. And just for the service, not the phone itself. So I'm going to open up, and I have Verizon. So I'm going to just bring Verizon up here so I can show you where you can find this information. And I'll just zoom in a bit so you guys can see it better. Okay, So let's say I want to get a phone. So I'm going to click on phones and see what comes up because you need to know how much a phone will cost. So we've got all these new phones. So let's say I want the Apple iPhone. And so what you need to know is the retail price. So the retail price is the important part here. So the iPhone 11 is $699.99. That's the retail price. I hate all these ads. If you want the Pro Max, that's $1,099.99. So the retail price is what you're going to be using in your equation. Then you also need to know how much your service is. So I know how much my service is, but let's say you don't have a cell phone and you want to know. So let's say you want an unlimited plan. So we'll go to plans and we go to unlimited. And because I have this zoomed in, it's really big. Okay, so let's say you want to start with the $35 a month. So let's say I want the iPhone 11, which is basically $700 a month, and then the plan is $35 a month. So I'm going to go back to my discussion thing here. So I'm going to just write these numbers in just so you can have an idea of how this all works. So my phone, we're going to say is 700 rounded, and then cell service is $35 a month. So we're going to calculate that if I decide to start this Verizon plan for $35 a month plus buy a phone and have it put on the plan so that I'm paying it monthly instead of all at once, how much is my bill going to be? That's what we're doing here. And so there's actually this equation, and this is a rational function because you're dividing by our variable. Our variable is M for months. And so my device cost, that would be the $700. My monthly bill is the phone plan, so that's $35. So it's 700 plus 35M divided by M. So that gives me my equation, which is a rational function because we're dividing by a variable. So then you need to find the asymptotes for this, which won't make sense until you go through the material, but that's in section 4.1 and 4.2 talking about finding the asymptotes. And then you want to find the monthly cost if you have the phone for 2 years, which is 24 months. So M stands for months. So you'd be saying, okay, so C of 24, what would that be? And you would plug that into your equation for M. And then you would figure out whatever that is. So how much would that come out? And that would be your bill because you'd be putting the phone on your bill in addition to the plan, which is how they do most of these things these days. And most of them are for 2 years or 24 months. If I go back to that Verizon and go back to phones, you can see in the small print, it says for 24 months, 0% APR, which means that you're basically getting a loan interest-free for 24 months. And so we're using this equation to figure out, okay, what is your bill going to be once you buy a phone, put it on your plan, that sort of thing. And this is interesting because they say it's 0% APR, but is that true? You can even do it with your own phone and say, okay, is this actually what I'm paying a month? So you can even verify, okay, are they actually being truthful with these numbers or are they being sneaky? The other thing is you can even verify whether it is 29 to 16 a month, because once you find your number for 24 months, subtract out what your monthly bill would be, and then see is the remainder the 29.16 for that phone. So you can even see, is this number they're telling me correct, or is it is it a little bit off? So you can kind of double check your cell phone company on yourself. So once you do all of that math, then part 3 is to actually reflect on it. So the first is, what is the minimum possible you can get your monthly cost down to? And then does this calculation, not necessarily the minimum possible cost, but the calculation we did to find the cost for 24 months, 2 years, does that make you reconsider how much you spend on a phone? Are you going to start spending less on a phone? Or do you think, oh, okay, that's not so bad, I can actually afford paying more on a phone? Or you just, it doesn't matter, I'm going to pay it no matter how much it costs. And then on the last part, and I'm sorry about my dog, she's in the other room and I'm home alone, so I can't really grab her. But the last part is would you be able to use this equation for budgeting? How could you use this in the future, say, if you're, going to get a new phone? Like my phone, I think my next cell phone payment is the last one I have to make on the phone, and then I've paid my phone off. So I'm thinking, well, okay, I could use this equation to figure out, well, how much am I willing to spend? If I want to spend $50 a month on when I get a new cell phone, how much can I afford for a cell phone in order to get my bill to that amount or to stay underneath that amount? So that's the prompt. It's really not so bad once you have an idea of what you're supposed to do. And so here, I pulled some numbers, showed what the equation worked or looks like, so that should be helpful and to give you an idea. So do you have any questions on the discussion? Okay, I don't see anything. So moving on to the assignments, this is starting to get old hat now that we've been through 5 weeks of the class. So you've got your ungraded practice assignment. So this is chapter 4, end of chapter review exercises. So 1 to 31 odds, which actually means, because it's every other one, that there's 16 problems for practice. If that's too many, you can do the checkpoint exercises. That's a good amount to practice with. Your graded week assignment, same requirements as before, so should be standard now. You know exactly what to expect. This assignment is actually probably one of the easiest assignments. People do really well on this assignment. And then, okay, let's focus on the quiz. So your quiz this week, again, same thing, 10 multiple choice questions timed at 1 hour. You have to do it all at once. You know the drill. Let's take a look at the topics. So because this is week 6, that means your quiz is on week 5 material. So I'm going to just make sure, because we always quiz you on the stuff after you get your feedback so that you can learn. So that means you're going to be finding zeros of polynomials. You will be graphing polynomials. Use Desmos.com for that. You'll be writing equations of polynomials, writing a variation model, doing some synthetic division, and analyzing the end behavior, the degree, the turning points of polynomials. So that's all stuff that was on the week 5 assignment. So to study, going through the week 5 assignment is your best bet because you had to do that. I would maybe pick a different polynomial to work with. There are pre and post tests on the textbook's website, so if you do the chapter 3 one, that's a good way to study. And then I've picked out practice problems on variation and on writing equations of polynomials. So there's several here. There's different types of variations, so that's why I've got 4 of them here. And then I've got 2 writing a polynomial from its roots. One comes from Algebra 2, one comes from pre-calculus, because college algebra is sort of in between both of those courses. And so those should give you some help and to help you study for those parts of the quiz. So when we look at the schedule, since we have only 2 sections, you see that there's this big empty space here if you do this Thursday or Friday. Or you could say, okay, I'm going to work Saturday, Sunday, and that leaves you a big empty space in the beginning. Use that time wisely. If you are behind, use that time to catch up. Use that time to do resubmissions if your instructor allows you to resubmit. Or if you use that time to work ahead if you want. I already have videos in the live session link for week 7. So if you want to start watching those and working ahead and starting week 7, you can go ahead and do that. Don't let that time go to waste, because you never know if something's going to come up in week 8 and then you're running out of time and you don't have time to do the final. So use your time wisely, prepare just in case something happens, because we only have a couple weeks left of class for you to get everything in. So are there any questions for me? Okay, well, I don't see any questions. So, hopefully this has been helpful. I know I went through things quickly, but by this time you've seen, it's the same old, same old. You've kind of gotten into the groove of things. The biggest things are just, okay, what do you need to do for the quiz? What do you need to do for the discussion? Because those are the biggest things you probably need to worry about. So if you have questions, um, you have my contact information. I sent everyone an email with the announcement of the session, so you can always reply to that and ask me questions. So I hope that the class has been going well for you and you've been having a good time with your instructors. And I hopefully we'll see you guys next week on Wednesday for week 7. All right. So have a great evening.